Hi, my name is Rod Sowden. Welcome to my introduction to Agile Project Management. This has been a topic that's been close to my heart for 5 or 6 years now, whilst we've been doing maturity assessments, as more and more organisations have been adopting this approach. So, why do we need Agile Project Management? Well, you may have come across the acronym VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And that pretty much defines the world we're all living in at the moment. As I'm recording this, we're looking at Christmas 2020. We don't know what the situation is going to be with COVID. As a business, we really have no idea where we're going. Yeah. And we've got Brexit and we don't know what the deal is. So any business dealing with the UK, Europe, and the rest of the world is totally unpredictable what's going to happen. So it matches all those things. It's volatile. Things are changing weekly. Uncertain. We have no idea what the outcomes are going to be. It's complex. You imagine being a restaurateur or something at the moment. You've got no chance of kind of working out what the government, whichever country you're in, is going to do next as the lockdowns tighten and then loosen. And so the whole thing lives in ambiguity. Now, one of the key interesting words about ambiguity is it's often said projects thrive in certainty, programs thrive in ambiguity. And what we see from Agile Project Management is the attempt by project management to act in an ambiguous or cope with the ambiguity of the environment in the same way that programs do almost by default. So, some things to think about. Agile originates from the DSDM consortium, who redesigned how software development worked. Previously, it was all heavy sets of requirements, detailed instructions, and armies of coders, which then quite often delivered quite tragic results. So the track record of software development and big systems failures across the globe is really, really impressive. Just about everyone fails and overspends. So we're looking for a different way of dealing with that type of project. And that's what Agile is giving organizations. We're seeing the growth of increasing dependency on digital systems to work with the interfaces as customers, with e-trading and all that kind of stuff. The approach to this needs to be much more flexible, because in most organizations, they don't really have a good understanding of the business architecture. So they start to do one piece of work and unearth problems elsewhere. Therefore, it makes sense to work to shorter timelines because they're more certain and you're working to a more certain environment. Okay, organizations' internal systems have been growing over the years, quite often with no master plan. Yeah, so the finance systems talking to other systems, to the HR system and all that kind of stuff. There's an awful lot of legacy stuff out there. And one client that we worked with who were trying to use Agile to redesign their customer interface were totally ignoring the fact that all their systems were really old and the customer interface needed those systems to be updated either. It was a truly difficult scenario for them to come to terms with. However, by using Agile properly, we were able to provide some quick wins for them. Okay, so there's 4 reasons why Agile has come to the fore and probably why you're sitting on this course. So what is different about Agile? Well, actually, if you look at that cycle, it's not that much different to a project management cycle, is it? You've got requirements, you do some planning, you then design what you're going to build, you then develop it, you then release it, and you check that it all works. Okay, it's very similar to an ordinary project life cycle. The difference is this one moves faster and more iteratively. So that life cycle that you can see on the screen in a normal project could be a year or 2. In an Agile project, those things are happening maybe in 5 or 6 weeks as we go through what they call increments of development. So these are some key points about what the project management in Agile looks at. It's really focusing on the need to deliver business value. So if they can actually produce something in 6 to 8 weeks, which has got some use to the organization, then that's much better than spending 6 to 8 weeks thinking about what you might create. So it's all about creating some value so that the money isn't wasted. Short-term planning focused on tangible deliverables that are achievable. As with any project, it could be going on for 2 years or whatever it has to be. There is a master plan with it, but all the effort of the team is focused on delivering something reasonably in the here and now. The one thing that's really unique about Agile is the way it focuses on the team behaviors and collaboration. Now, there are some parts of Agile where they've just basically borrowed good practice project management. But what it really focuses on these team things like stand-up meetings, scrums, interactions, communications, joint development, joint collaboration, in, involving the business in the process as well, so that the business is in control of the decision making. These are the kind of unique things. The roles have far greater recognition of the roles within the teams. If I were to say to you, if you said, well, you were to ask me, what's the difference between project management, Agile, and say Prince 2, I would say it's about the way it focuses on what the team tasks are up to and how they're being managed. At the foundation level, we don't really have burn down rates and terms like that. But actually, when you move up to practitioner, you will. But there's some tactics in there that are different to normal project management. And that brings with it challenges, because if you've been trained in normal project management, quite frankly, it's quite a lot of gobbledygook. And as I mentioned, specific techniques. And this vocabulary is a really important thing. The Agile Foundation course doesn't particularly get into it heavily, but it is a key characteristic. Now, the wonderful thing about Agile is there seems to be about as many versions of Agile as we need to get anything done anywhere. So we need to be careful when we're talking about Agile about what version we're talking about. So here's an Agile framework. As I mentioned, there are multiples of them. So here's one that's just of use to understand what's going on. So in an Agile framework, we've got somebody setting out how this thing's going to operate. Now, within this course, we'll be talking about the Agile manifesto, the Agile philosophy, just setting out these are the kind of principles and rules that we're going to follow. And then, of course, we already mentioned the focus on teamwork. Yeah, who's doing what? How is the team broken down? How do they operate together? And what are they responsible for? And we want to keep these rules as simple as they can. If they don't meander on to paragraphs, and lists, there's your job. That's your task. That's how it is. We then need to think about open information. Yeah, you can see some bullets in that slide that we need to avoid. We need to be clear who is going to own the products that are being produced. We need to be clear who's doing what. We need to be clear who's chairing the stand-up meetings. We need to be clear about what information we need to make decisions. And then light touch. Now, one of the things about Agile is I would say Agile helps high performers perform at an even higher rate because they're trustworthy, innovative, and creative and intelligent. What you've always got to be wary of is poor performers will still remain poor performers. So yeah, we need to give people the chance to succeed, but that doesn't mean to say you don't need project controls. And then Agile vigilance. Yeah, one of the big problems for projects that go wrong is they run out of control. They aren't under a sufficient change. Actually, with the daily stand-ups and the 2-week sprints or the 4-week sprints, the level of control in an Agile project is actually higher. There is this image that it likes to project of a kind of anarchy, but in truth, that's not what it is. It's actually really tight control, but using different words. So to finish off, I'd just like to give you 5 lessons for the unwary. This is some stuff that we developed after reviewing a major program that quite clearly was running out of control. After only 3 months, it had blown 6 million quid. And at the end of the day, Agile doesn't make poor project managers good project managers. Okay, so these were the lessons that we published afterwards that people should be wary of. Firstly, Agile v Agile. Be wary of the A word. One of the things that we've noticed in clients as all the way along is people talk about being agile, which is with a little a. In the meantime, you've got people who know about agile with a big A, thinking that people who say they want to be agile mean they want to use agile processes. it isn't actually that way. So agile is such a kind of common word about organizations becoming more flexible, living in that VUCA environment, that they kind of need to react. It doesn't mean they're adopting agile with a capital A or buying into using a whole set of new words. You need to be wary, and we've seen situations where we've seen directors using the word agile in different ways in the same sentence. Same with agile team leaders and all those different roles. So you need to be really careful about how you're using the context of agile. All right. In fact, it's that one particular client, we banned the word agile and changed when we were talking about organizational flexibility, and just talked about flexibility and dynamism so they didn't get confused. Agile project management still requires discipline. Okay, it's operating at a different level to the things like Prince 2 that you may be familiar with. It's a team-based methodology that's defining how things should happen, but still the governance needs to be there. But it's still got the same disciplines. They're different words. Some of the stuff sounds kind of loose, fast, and trendy, but those controls are still there. And if they're not, you can blow, as in the case of one client, 6 million quid in three months. So maintaining control, one of those mind maps on the previous slide talked about maintaining control. So what you're doing is you're providing quite dynamic change control. Yeah, so new opportunities are coming up because you're changing direction every 2 or 3 weeks or making decisions on short time horizons. You can grab opportunities or bypass constraints very easily. However, part of the problem with the client that we had was they had agile teams making decisions locally that were not being coordinated at the program level. And one of the kind of anathemas to me is agile program management, because if any of you are familiar with managing successful programs, you will know that by definition, it is agile. The whole tranche idea is build a capability, decide where you're going to go next. Build a capability, decide where you're going to go next. Exactly the same idea is in agile. And if anything, I claim that agile people read the MSP manual back in 2007 and thought, what a good idea, we'll turn this into project management and change the words. So language and vocabulary is another real big one to be careful of, all right? It really is easy to get caught up in a smokescreen of abbreviations and new words and get really, really confused about what's going on, particularly if you've got the agile enthusiasts, or as one other client called them, the agilistas, who only want to talk agile. They don't want to talk business vocabulary anymore. They don't want to talk your old-fashioned project vocabulary, but this is the road to absolute failure. And as the slide is saying, you know, there are the agilistas that are completely conversant in the vocabulary. It's almost like they're native speakers. But if you're new to that vocabulary, you really need to be very careful. And what you really need to be very careful of is agilistas who've just done a course and don't really understand the vocabulary themselves. And then finally, a point that I made earlier, poor project performance will remain poor project performers, okay? So just because you're putting in agile project management, it is not the answer to all your problems of underperforming teams, lack of discipline. It's actually making it worse. You need to sort out your project performers and then give them agile, because if they're high performers, they'll fly higher and faster using agile than they would normally. But if they're the poor performers, they're going to just crash earlier. The only problem is you won't know they're crashing because they'll be using a whole new bunch of words. Okay, right, well, I hope you enjoy the course, and good luck with the foundation exam if that's why you're doing it.